Welcome back to our series on building standalone apps. In the first couple of installments in the series, we built this standalone app, which we have called the Party Patcher, and we've also gone ahead and scripted some of the ways that we want to modify it so that we can distribute this easily. This time around, we're going to add a few more features which are really more specific to building a standalone app that you might not normally use in your everyday Max patching if you're just hosting in Max. Let's just dive right in. And one thing that we want to do in our standalone app probably is we might want to be able to save the state of this patch and then load it back up. So if we're going to do that, most apps do that in their file menu. Max, for example, we can open our patcher, and we can also save a patcher. But how would we go about doing that in our app? Well, the answer to this is that we need to be able to modify the menu bar. And to do that, there is an object in Max called, well, guess what? Menu bar. The way this menu bar object works is that we can use a toggle to turn it on or off, and this will turn on our custom menu bar. It currently still says Max because we're in the Max application, but in our Party Patcher application it'll say about Party Patcher. And then we have some standard menu items here, and we might want to add some additional items over here. If I double click the menu bar, I can edit what is in the menu. This menu bar script may look a little bit curious. It uses something called bin buffs, which are something from Max's long legacy in the past. So the way it works is that each item in the menu bar script needs to start with a hashtag X, and then a space, and then some additional stuff. It's a little tricky to remember what all the additional stuff is. So we can always open the menu bar help patcher to find out what it is that we need to do. One thing that we can see here from this example is that we can give a menu bar an additional item. If we say menu bar 5, we'll get 5 items instead of 4. The default is 4. You can see your file, edit, window, and help. So if we say that we're going to have 5 items, then we can go ahead and define what the 5th menu is going to be. In this example, it's called Super Duper, and then we add items to that menu. So let's quickly try that out. If we turn this on, sure enough, there's a Super Duper menu with those items. So one thing we could do in our menu bar, if we wanted to do something with the Party Patcher, is we can say menu bar 5. We'll give ourselves a 5th menu bar item. And then in our script, before the end, which always has to be the last thing that we receive, we'll add a $X, and then we say menu title, and then we need to have the number for the index of our menu title, and then we'll give it a name. So maybe we could use this 5th menu thing to change the plugin. Remember, we change between a reverb and a comber effect. And those details of that are in the previous videos if you need to get caught up. So we'll add 2 items. We can say item. This is going to be in the 5th menu, and it's going to be the first item. And we'll call it chamber verb. If we want to give it a shortcut, then what we can do is we can add a slash and then the shortcut. So it would be like /Z, which usually would be used for undo, but that would make it a command or control Z. If we do /1, then it'll be command 1 on the Mac or control 1 on Windows. So we go ahead and do that. We'll add another item for the comber, and we'll give it the shortcut command 2. We'll say OK. And if everything goes OK, then we can double click this again and we'll see that everything's exactly the way we had it. So that's cool. Now, when I turn on our custom menu bar, we get a plugin menu, and it gives us those two options. If we want to capture what the user does with these, then for this fifth item that we added, it'll come out the fifth outlet. So I can go ahead and hook up a number box there. And now when I choose chamber verb, a 1 will come out, and when I choose comber, a 2 will come out. So it's just a matter of patching now to go ahead and control that in our patch. And this uses a U menu, which is 0 based in its counting, so I'll go ahead and say -1. Okay, and now let's just try. I'm going to hit Command 1. Well, it's already chamber verb, and hit Command 2, and it will switch. Let me go ahead and turn on the audio so we can hear it. So Command 2 now, and Command 1, or I could choose it from the menu bar. It goes back to the reverb. Okay, so that's one little bit of polish and customization that's pretty common to want to do in the context of a standalone app. Let's move this out of the way over here for the moment. We'll go ahead and also, before we leave this alone, we'll say load mess 1 so that it automatically enables our menu bar when our app starts. Now I touched on this a minute ago, but we might want to save and open files to represent the state of our app. And if we do that, there are several aspects of this that are a little bit tricky. So one of those is figuring out what our file format's going to be. This sound file, for example, that we've chosen, that might be something that we want to capture and save as a part of the documents for controlling our app. And if we take a look at the messages, one of the nice messages here for the playlist is that there's a get content message, and it stuck that up above there. So if we click this get content message, move this guy out of the way as well. If we click this, what's going to come out is a dictionary. So if I use a dict object as an example, get content, and then double click the dict, what I'm going to see is all of the information about what's going on inside of this playlist. If I want to save this file, I could save a write message to the dict. For example, if I make a message, oops, wrong shortcut. If I say tilde slash documents slash my doc, and let's say we want to give our custom documents for our app the .party extension, we would say .party. And if we want to write it, then we would say write. We can do this, but the dict object isn't going to let us use .party as the extension because it tries to enforce the proper extension for a dictionary, which is .json. So if I click this and we go look in my documents folder, what we're going to see is we're going to see my doc.party.json. But we don't want the .json because .json might be associated with some other app. So the trickiness that we need to do here is we need to use a different object. We can use the text object as an example, and Max's text object will let us use any extension we want. So if we want to convert the dictionary into something that can be written and read by the text object, we can go ahead and use a dict.serialize object, which turns a dictionary into the JSON content. Then we'll send the JSON content to the text object. And then when we do that, go ahead and click, go ahead and click this button here, what's going to happen is now this text object is going to have this JSON content in here. And then when I say write, it will give us a document with our own custom extension. So that's really great. The next step then is we'll need to be able to read that, and when we read that, we'll do the same type of thing. So we would say, except we would say, oops, read. I shouldn't have deleted this. I'll write that again so that it's on the file system. So we're going to say read text, and when we do that, then we'll need to get the content back out. And there's a message to the text object, line, and then the number, and line 0 is the first line. And then if we send that to the opposite of dict.serialize, which is dict.deserialize, it'll turn that text back into a dictionary. So let's go ahead and stick a dict underneath here. And then when I click this, and then we click the dict, it's empty. What went wrong? We come to the Max window, and it says it can't find this file /documents my doc party. I thought we had saved it. So let's take a look at this. We'll write it. We'll try this again. We'll try this again, and we'll see this still seems to be having trouble. If we go to the, not the Max window, but if we go to the Finder, and we come and we look in our Documents folder, we'll see that it's here, but it can't read it. So why is it that Max can't find this? Well, the reason is because Max doesn't know about these kinds of files with the .party extension. So we need to make a modification to Max. If we want to make this work in our standalone, we'll have to make the same modification to our standalone. So it could be useful to dig into this. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quit Max. And then we are going to break into the application. So on the Mac, we say options. We'll show this in the Finder. And then we say show package contents. That this little step is not necessary on Windows because you simply see the folder with Max and its resources. So in this resources folder, there's a C74 folder, and in the C74 folder, there's an init folder. In the init folder, we have a bunch of files here which are run when Max launches, and one of those is a file called Max File Formats, and this defines all of the different kinds of files that Max is able to read so that Max knows what to do with them. I'm going to go ahead and open up this in TextMate. So here's the file. It has all of the different types of files that Max can read, and we need to go ahead and enter something here so that Max knows what to do with these .party files. The text object, which is the object we're using, knows how to read text files. So we could go and find an example of a text file, and one such example is right here, the .txt extension. We'll come down toward the end of the file and we'll paste that here. And it says we're going to send a message to Max that defines a file format, .party. This is going to be text. We're going to give it a description, and we'll save this file formats.txt. Now let's try launching Max and see if this will work. Having this entry in the init file is something that we'll need to do in our standalone. Okay, so here we haven't read anything. If I try reading this file now, look at that. Now it reads in. So that is exactly what we want. And if I look in this dictionary, it gives us exactly what we want. What that means is that if I want to choose a different file now, I can come to the audio. I can say that I want to choose the brushes file. Then I could go ahead and click this here. We can do a write. We'll give this a different name. We'll have another read for the second file. Okay, so we can do this and write this. And then if I read and write these two different files, it'll be able to change the sound file if we do a little bit of additional patching. So what exactly is that patching we need to do? Well, the dictionary has within it a key called clips. And the first of these clips has a key called file name. So that's what we'll go ahead and look at. We can say dict.unpack the clips key. And if we put another dictionary here, we can see what happens when we read this in. So now we'll just ask for the file name key. Again, another dict.unpack for file name. And then that should be a symbol, so we'll just stick a message here so we can see it. When I read this file, it says drum loop. When I read this file, it says brushes. That's great. And then what we want to actually do with this is we're going to clear the content of this playlist and then append whatever came in here. So we'll switch the inlet that we're using for the message box. And we'll say clear and then append with the symbol here. So if we hook that up to our playlist, now we can read back and forth between our two different saved files. That is a great start on this feature. We definitely are reaching a point where we need to start cleaning up this patcher. See if I can put that off just a little longer. So now we need to make a little bit of user interaction available here. When I click this button up here, instead of just writing out to this fixed file, what we want to do is we want to give the user the ability to choose the file name and where to save it. So we'll use an object in Max called save dialog. So we can send a message to save dialog, which will tell it what type of file we're saving. So we can send it a text message and then it will try to save this file. If we want to enforce the party extension though, or suggest the party extension, then we have a little bit of extra work to do. So let's go ahead and say name untitled dot party, comma, text. Now when we click this, it will show us a party extension, which is what we want. And I can come here, we could say save, and it doesn't actually save it because what we need to do is we need to take this path right here and stick it onto this write message. So what we can do is we can say prepend the write symbol to the path, and then that will go to the text object that's going to write this out. And what we want to do up here with this button is we want to first get the content, so we can use right to left ordering or a trigger object. And this is how we will save our app. Now I do that. my party. And if we go and look in the Finder now, in our Documents folder, we have this file. And if I were to open this file in a text editor like TextMate, then what we'll see is it has these clips, it has a bunch of information. Actually, what we can see is we can see that there's clips here and it's happening multiple times. So what happened in this case is that this text file in Max, it keeps on appending. So if I look at this, it's hard to see because it's all stuck on one line. But before we add this dictionary, what we should actually do is we should go ahead and clear this text file, and then it will add the dictionary. So let's try this now. Click this. We'll just leave it as untitled party. Then when I come to the Finder, I take untitled untitled party. This looks a lot better. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Then when we read, instead of using save dialog, what we want to do is we will want to use open dialog. Open dialog, just like the save dialog, we can send it a text message and then it will only be able to read text, which happens to include the party extension. So if I open this, it'll pop out the symbol down here, and we'll, similar to what we did before, we will now say, oops, prepend read, and then it will read this into the text object. Once it's read this into the text object, then we will want to go ahead, oops, and tell it to output line 0. Let's try it. So when we take this and we do my doc party, it went ahead and opened the file and set our state to use the drum loop. All right, so let's tidy this up, and we can choose all these items and say, oh, we still have the our custom menu bar, so we need to turn that off if we want to use Max or use Max's menu bars. Okay, select all of this, and I'm going to leave the bang on the outside. So we'll say encapsulate. This patcher we'll call read files. And then we have this one, which we will also encapsulate. Call this one save files. All right. Now what we can do is we want to go ahead and hook those up to our menu bar item for our custom menu bar. To do that, let's go ahead and look at this help patcher again and see if it provides us any particular hints. If we come and take a look, we can see there is a close item, but we don't see anything about the open item or the save item. However, over here, all of these messages that are listed, these are all things which can appear in that script. So open, and it tells us that this is a script message. And so we can use that. Same thing with the save as item. So let's go ahead and try that. In our menu bar script, we're going to say, prior to close item, we will say pound X, open, and then we need to give it an item number so that we can intercept what it is that's coming out. We can give it any item we want, so I could use 74 as an example. And I say OK, and we better have the max window open, because if we screw this up, we won't know what's happened. Okay, so now I'm do this. I'm going to hook up this first one here. That's the application menu. We want the file menu. If we turn on our menu bar and say file, open, the number 74 comes out. So let's go ahead and we'll do that also for the save item, pound X, save as 75. Okay, now I'm going to close this, say file, say save, it just does nothing. If you save as, it's 75. So let's see if we can do, make this one 76, this one X, save, 75. Okay, file. So save as is 76, save is 75, open is 74. So let's go ahead, we'll say select, and we have 74, 75, and 76. Hook this up. 74 then is going to be to open a file. 75 is to save it. 76 is to do a save as. So to just save the existing file, we're going to need to add some additional logic in here so that we remember which file was open. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to leave that for anybody interested in working on this to experiment with on their own. Out of habit, because when I patch I hit Command S a lot to just save. You can just see I'll do this again. But what I'm actually doing is I'm actually hitting the save for my standalone. So if I were to hook up a button here, you'd see that I'm actually keep on hitting this, and it's not saving my patcher, so it still shows that it's dirty up here. So I need to make sure I turn this menu bar off. Now I can hit Command S and save my Max patcher. Okay, so that's one way that you can read and write files. And we could go ahead and build our app now and try it out and see what trouble we get in. But before we do that, I'm going to throw one more special feature into this thing. And that special feature is going to be a secret Max object. And the secret Max object is called opened. If you try to open a help patcher, there is no help patcher. If you try to look at the reference, there is no reference. This really is a secret object. So you now have a little bit of inside knowledge. What does this do? If we send a bang to it, and we can hook up some messages to its outlets to see what comes out. Right now it's just saying symbols come out. So that's not very helpful. Let me show you what happens. If I come over here, we can take this file. If we drop this file onto the Max application, Max is opening this in a text window, which is not exactly what we want. But one other thing that it's doing is this opened object is triggering some output. And what it's doing is it's telling us what was dragged onto the Max application. So it'll tell us that it's a text file. It'll tell us that the name of the text file, and then it'll give us the entire path to it. So if we come here and we want to strip off that symbol, we can say, this is a message box, but what I want is a new object box. Root the symbol. Okay, So now when this receives a bang, or just it'll go ahead and output it whenever something's dragged on, it'll give us this symbol. So this is something that we want to use for the read files, because if somebody drags this party file onto our application icon, then we want to be able to open it. So I'll go ahead and make another inlet, and we'll go ahead and let's do a trigger object here. And the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to send that path for this read message, and then the bang will tell it to output the first line. So close that. And so now, what should happen right now, we're seeing a drum loop here, and if I go ahead and drag this document onto the application, oops, what happened here? Go try this again. Drag it onto the application. It didn't work. And the reason that it didn't work is because I need to actually send this into the inlet as well. Okay, try it now. Come here, drag this onto the application, and now it changed our sound file. In addition to popping open this window, we can deal with that problem in a little bit. Okay, so just to recap, we have a custom format. We can drag the file onto our Max icon. We can read and write it through this menu bar. Let's go ahead and build our standalone application. Save this. We'll go to the project window, which has been lurking in the background, set up as it had been set up for the previous videos in the series. We'll come over here, say build the collective or application. We've been building this onto the desktop. Okay, we can see that there's already one there. As I've mentioned in the past, you really want to delete that before you do this, because sometimes things don't get updated correctly, and it can be a bit of a problem. So let's come to desktop, party patcher, delete that, come over here, we'll build this application, we'll hit save, and right now this is building and it's taking a while, and we've seen that in the first couple of videos, but I have good news, which is that we have dramatically improved this for our next version of Max so that it's really fast, and so that's something we can all look forward to here in the future. And it's done. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now, and if I quit Max and we start our Party Patcher application, we will find out what we forgot to do. Okay, it's playing the brushes loop because when we saved the patch, that was the file that was in there. Apparently it's not looping. If we come here, we can turn on looping. That maybe is something else that we would want to extract from the file. If I come here to our menu, we can see we do have the plugin. So we can change this. It doesn't appear to be working. And the reason that it's not working is because, remember, we have to run the Ruby script that we had previously created, which adds the resources that are required for everything to run. So we'll need to go back and do that. Before we do that, let's just check a couple of our other features. So one of our other features is that we can open files. We say open, and when we say open my doc.party, what happens? Well, it can't load the drum loop. And the reason it can't load this drum loop is because what we were extracting out of the dictionary is just the name drum loop. If we look at this dictionary, we can see it's called drum loop, but it doesn't have in this dictionary the complete path to the drum loop file. So Max can't find this drum loop file. That's partly an error in the file, you could say. If we were to drag some other file on there that is not in Max's search path, then it's going to get the entire path in there. So we need to address that by storing the entire path to the file, not just the name of the file. So that's one change we'll need to make to our logic in reading and writing files. We can address that. If we want to do a save, let's drag a sound onto there, and we can do that if I come here and do a search for EIF files. And we can come here, we'll take this file, which we all know and love from Max. If I drag this onto here, you can see that it's in there now, and if I say file and we do save, remember we didn't hook up save, so it's not going to do anything. Save as will pull up the dialog here. So we'll call this Antone Party, and we'll save that. And if I go look at Antone Party now in the TextMate text editor, what we'll see is the file name for this did in fact save the entire path. So that's good. So if we go ahead and quit the Party Patcher and run our Party Fixer, it should fix up the few remaining things that we needed to do. So I'm going to go ahead and say cd desktop /party fixer, which we haven't changed at all since last time. Okay, now let's try running the Party Patcher and see if our plugin menu item works. Yep, it sure does. So I think we'll call that a day. We have a few tasks there in our patcher to address. I can leave those to you as an exercise, and until next time, happy patching.